All right, let's dive in and crack a tricky 5-mark question from a GCSE higher non-calculator paper. Getting every single one of these marks can be a real challenge, so we're going to break this one down step by step and see exactly how it's done.
Okay, so the question starts off pretty simple. We meet Kasim and his collection of jars, but there's one number here that is absolutely crucial to everything we're about to do. That total of 400 jars. You're going to want to lock that number away in your brain.
And just so we know where we're heading, spoiler alert, this is the final answer we're aiming for, 7.5%. But, the answer itself isn't the point. It's how we get there and how we pick up all 5 of those precious marks along the way.
So, here's our game plan. We'll look at the full problem, then we'll work through 3 main steps. First, we find the number of empty jars. Then we untangle the ratios. After that, we find the small jars. And finally, we'll calculate that final percentage. Let's do it.
So what's the actual goal here? We need to find the percentage of the total jars that are both small and empty. We're going to use the official mark scheme as our guide, so you can see exactly where an examiner awards each of the 5 marks.
Right. First things first. Before we can find the small empty jars, we obviously need to know how many empty jars there are in total. The question tells us that 3/8 of those 400 jars are empty.
And check this out. This is straight from the mark scheme. This is what the examiner is looking for first. That P1 stands for a process mark. Just for showing the right method to find the number of empty jars, you get your first point. Easy as that.
So, this is the calculation that gets you that first mark. We need to find 3/8 of 400. Now remember, this is a non-calculator paper. So what's 400 divided by 8? Well, that's 50. And then 50 multiplied by 3 gives us
150. So we now know there are 150 empty jars in total. That's the first major piece of our puzzle, and 1 mark in the bag.
Now for step 2, and this is where it gets a little more interesting. The ratios. The question layers in more information here, and this is a classic spot where people can get a bit mixed up.
But the mark scheme tells us exactly what to do next. To get the second process mark, we have to combine 2 different ratios. The problem gives us small to medium as 3:4 and medium to large as 1:2. The trick is to make the medium number the same in both. So we can scale up that second ratio from 1:2 to 4:8. Now the middle term matches perfectly.
And that gives us this beautiful combined ratio. For every 3 small empty jars, there are 4 medium empty jars and 8 large empty jars. Having this single ratio is the key that unlocks the rest of the problem.
Okay, we're making some serious progress. We know there are 150 empty jars, and we know the ratio they come in. Now we can finally figure out how many of those are small.
And again, if we look at the mark scheme, there's another specific process mark, a P1, for this exact calculation. The examiner wants to see your method for splitting those 150 empty jars using that 3:4:8 ratio.
So, how do we do that? Well, first, we add up the total parts in our ratio. 3 plus 4 plus 8. That gives us 15 parts in total. Since we only want the small jars, we need its share, which is 3 out of those 15 parts. So we need to find 3/15 of the 150 empty jars. Okay, time for some quick mental math. What's 150 divided by 15? Well, that's 10, and then 10 times 3 is 30. Perfect. We've got the last key number we need. There are exactly 30 small empty jars.
We are on the home stretch now. This is it. We have the number of small empty jars, that's 30, and we have the total number of jars from the very beginning. That's 400. Let's go get that final percentage. One last process mark to collect. The mark scheme shows we get it for the process of turning our number into a percentage of the total. And notice how 30 is in quotes? That means you'd still get this mark even if you used your own, maybe incorrect number from the previous step. That's a really important thing to remember.
So here's the final calculation. We take our 30 small empty jars and we put that over the total 400 jars. We can simplify 30 over 400 by knocking a 0 off the top and bottom, so that's 3 over 40. Then we multiply by 100, which gives us 300 over 40, and that's just the same as 30 divided by 4. So what's 30 divided by 4? Well, half of 30 is 15, and half of 15 is 7.5. And there it is, the final answer, which gets you that final accuracy mark, the A1. We did it! And one final really important note from the mark scheme. It's always good to know that they often accept equivalent answers. So if you wrote 7.5 as a fraction, that would get you full marks too.
So that's how you get all 5 marks. But it leaves us with one last stop. Looking back at all those steps, what do you think the most common trap would be? I bet it's calculating 30 as a percentage of the 150 empty jars instead of the 400 total jars. It's those little details that can make all the difference, right?